distinguished guests, sisters and brothers. On behalf of the United Cuba Solidarity Community in the United States, it is my good pleasure to welcome all of this distinguished delegation who are visiting with us tonight. We are a diverse group of people, united around one central commitment: the normalization of relations with Cuba and the recognition of the stalwart character, the independence, the unflinching commitment to principle, and a steadfast obligation which it has assumed to serve the poorest of the world. I assure you that I speak for everyone in this house and thousands of others who are not here, who wish they could be here, and whose well wishes are with us tonight as we welcome you, in saying that we will continue in solidarity with Cuba until that time comes when our own country comes to its senses and recognizes Cuba and cooperates with it. In the United States, we hear many stupid questions about Cuba. Speak on some of the questions reflect that in the U.S. we have been brainwashed to assume the worst about Cuba. We have been misinformed so that our perceptions and assumptions are really based upon misinformation and sheer ignorance. One of the questions which was being asked until about a year ago is what will happen to Cuba when Fidel steps aside? Will the country fall apart? Will there be revolution? Will there be dancing in the streets? One of the reasons we are pleased to welcome this delegation is because by your shared presence and the history of your work and service in the Cuban Revolution, you answer that question. This delegation is the highest level delegation to have come to the U.S. from Cuba since Fidel Castro's last visit. Almost any member of this delegation represents that level of excellence in leadership and absolute dedication to the principles of the Cuban Revolution. Many of us know Fernando Ramirez, who served in several posts as the chief of section, primarily in Washington, D.C. for several years, and who is now the person responsible for international relations for the Communist Party of Cuba. Many of us know, and we have had the grand pleasure of welcoming on previous occasions Felipe Roque, the Foreign Minister of Cuba. But tonight, we're here to represent, to present to you and to welcome another member of that stellar ranks of revolutionary leaders in Cuba who has never been to the United States. One of the things that I have in common with him is that we were both born the same year. So, happy birthday. Jose Ramon Machado Ventura. He was a member of the original Cuban revolutionary force that fought to overthrow the dictatorship of Batista, which had been put in place and supported by the US government. He was trained as a physician. And it is always very interesting to me how many of the early Cuban revolutionaries were trained as physicians. And he was among those who observed the conditions under which those in the Sierra Maestra lived. And he was one of those who joined in the early formulation of a commitment by the Cuban Revolution to, when it ascended to the leadership of the nation, give universal health care to all the people of Cuba. That is a commitment which they have fulfilled. And so I take the special pleasure of, on behalf of all of the graduates and students from the US who are students in the Latin American School of Medicine who are here tonight, and their families, to say a special word of thanks to you and to all of Cuba for having made possible the education as medical doctors of youngsters from our own communities in the United States. There are currently 17 graduates and 120 US children, citizens, who are currently studying in Cuba. Ramon Machado Ventura served in many capacities among those revolutionary forces, and he served side by side, achieving the rank of Comandante with some whom we have heard more about, but who did their duty as he did his duty in the leadership of the revolution, such as Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Raul Castro. His credentials are impeccable, his service to Cuba outstanding, and we welcome you tonight to the United States in order that we might, through you, hear anew the hopes and the aspirations of Cuba and the possibilities that you can contribute to opening paths of understanding, of communication, and of mutual respect between the peoples of the United States and the people of Cuba. So it is my good pleasure to present to you the first Vice President of Cuba, Jose Ramon Machado Ventura.